Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cash Flow Project. I'm your host, Vince Gethings with Tri-City Equity Group. And today we have Alex Jarbo on the show. Alex was born and raised in Detroit. After about 5 years in the Marines, he started investing in short-term rentals. That's his niche. He's absolutely crushing it in. Only started in 2018, if that's right, 2018. Bought his first one, and he quickly switched to developing to where he can scale. And we're going to get into that entire niche of short-term rentals, why he went that route, why he decided to develop instead of keep buying pre-built ones. And this is going to be a very good show. So I'm going to jump right into it. Alex, welcome to the show.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Vincent.
Awesome. All right. So I guess we'll start with the softball questions here. Why did you decide real estate over any other paths of investing? I know I'm in the military too. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm actually transitioning out. Right now I'm on terminal leave, and most of my coworkers are always stock investing. And then lately it's been crypto, but it's just like stock investing is what everybody does. Very few people in the military invest in real estate. So how did you choose that path? How did you find it? And we'll get into that first deal.
Yeah, I originally started looking into like flipping properties and looking into how doing that. I was part of a group coaching thing that focused on flipping. And one day, one of the mentors, we had done a little summit in Florida while I was still in the Marine Corps, and the mentor was talking about vacation rentals, and how essentially he does all of his flips and everything to be able to invest in short-term rentals. And this is back in 2016, 15, and that really sort of opened my eyes. So that was on top of why I got into real estate, why I got into just it's things that you can control is what I liked about it. Is you can purchase a property, say like you guys are in the multifamily space, you can purchase a property and improve the operations, and then that property is worth more at the end of the day if the net income goes up. So that is what drew me to that, compared to the stock market, where you can select the right stocks, you can select the right crypto, but at the end of the day you don't really have any control over what happens in that. And I mean, crypto has some incredible returns, but you sort of have to get lucky, or at least you don't know what could happen. Someone could tweet something and then your stuff tanks, both stocks and crypto. So that's why it sort of drew me to real estate in general. Is just stuff I could control. The barrier to entry was a little higher, which I actually wanted. Like, it's pretty easy for you to download an app and just purchase a stock. But I did like the barrier to entry being a little bit higher. That's also, we'll talk about in a second, why I got into the short-term rental development over actually purchasing them. But yeah, that's why I got into real estate, was that I was also transitioning out of the Marine Corps, and I sort of was looking for something that I could actually do full time, because I didn't want to do stocks, crypto, or even like something like an actual business, like running like a restaurant. I didn't want to do anything like that. But yeah, that's why I was drawn to real estate. The passivity side of it, where I don't even know if that's a word, but the passive side of it, where I can sort of not necessarily set and forget it, but I can run my business sort of like from anywhere. Like when my wife and I travel, like I can run the short-term rental stuff from my phone, the real estate stuff. So
nice. And I can totally relate. For the listeners that kind of listen to my backstory in the early episodes, that was one of the big reasons why I went into real estate as well, was control. I was a big stock investor. Like, I took the courses, read all the famous books out there, was big into it for about 4 or 5 years. And then you hit like a light bulb, smashes you in the head, and you're like, I have no control over any of this. Like, I spent months and months and months, researching industries and new technologies and, companies' prospectuses and offerings and all this stuff. You buy the stock and you still just give all of your money to this board or the CEO or this person that you don't know. You've never met them. You don't know what their core values are, what integrity they have, and what their, motives are. and you absolutely have no control. And then outside of the company, then you just have like the whole Mr. Market thing, which is just completely irrational anyway.
Right.
So even if you do all the work to pick the right company or the best company that has the brightest future, the best business plan, the market could just like completely dump on it and just be like, and you just lose all your money anyway for no reason.
The market, it's also like same thing with the military, where it's like you could have a complete change in leadership overnight, and then that could completely screw the culture of the company up.
Yep,
So.
Exactly. So that was I got burned one time, and I was on a green energy company, and after that, I withdrew everything. Like TSP liquidated my stock, my IRAs, my Roths, everything, my brokerage accounts. Just I pulled everything out, and I was like, I got to find something else. And then that's when I picked up found bigger pockets, way back when in 2015. So awesome. I love that we share that similar kind of path there. So before we get into the short-term stuff, what is your why behind this investing thing that you have? Is it cash flow? Is it what's the why?
Yeah, I mean, cash flow is always going to be a big part of it, but it's mainly the financial freedom piece of it. I mean, I reference the military a lot, but I've learned a lot of lessons through my friends and just the military in general. And it's like I just didn't want to be living. I mean, a lot of guys would be living like paycheck to paycheck and stuff. And me getting out, I decided to get married after I got out of the military, and I was like, I want to be able to travel. I mean that seems to be like the goal of everyone, but travel, but also run my business from anywhere. Now that doesn't mean that I'm like a complete nomad where I'm just hopping countries and cities. I do like to have a home base somewhere where I can come back and like have an office to work. That's just me. That's what I've realized in the last couple of years. But yeah, it was mainly the financial freedom. When we started to take on investors this year, I saw how excited some of these investors were getting over the deals, and then also they were talking about what they're going to be doing with the cash flow. Like took on a couple of my military. One of my military buddies was actually my first investor, and we're doing a couple cabins together this year. That cash flow is probably going to be able to allow him to do whatever he wants, like outside of just going out and getting a job. So that's really cool. Is like what we're doing now is like my big why is transformed into like sort of providing financial freedom to my investors, whether it be if they are working professionals and they just want to do this thing passively. But it's also cool to see like some of our investors who are actually being able to live financially free based off the cash flow that we're doing it for them. So it's a little bit of both traveling, but also sort of taking care of our investors.
Absolutely, and it is very very much life transforming.
Yeah.
When, especially for somebody that all they know or they've been ever taught is just you get whatever you can put in a week, like 40 hours a week, like whatever you can punch, maybe you get some overtime if you're lucky, stuff like that. And then, be grateful for that. And they don't know there's anything more than that. So to be able to open that curtain and be like, look, there's, you can invest in this cash flowing asset, virtually passive for you, and you're just going to be, set. And then just like that first check they get is like, oh my God, like it's life changing for a lot of people.
People are hungry for it, man. Like people like real estate in general right now. It's a lot of these investor calls that I'm having. I'm sure you too. It's like a lot of the times, like people have already made up their mind to invest if they've already contacted you. It's just they're just looking for the deal. It's like the money raising side honestly hasn't been that difficult, just because it's like people are looking to take their money out of the stock market right now. Some of our investors are taking their money out of crypto already, and it's like it's been an interesting thing. It's like we can offer them like a ridiculous cap rate compared to like them getting what 5 to 10% in the stock market if they're lucky.
Yeah,
and that's average, like over the course of a lifetime, compared to like 5 to 10 to this year or something.
Exactly. It is. I don't know. Real estate to me, there's no better asset class, and I love that there's so many different ways to skin the cat. You can do short-term rentals, you can do multifamily, you can do BRRRR strategies and stuff like that. So anyway, let's get into your first deal before we get into development again. Let's get into that first deal. A lot of people, because that's where they're at, they're getting like, how do I get the first one?
Yeah, absolutely. So
let's talk about that. How'd you find it? How'd you fund it? What obstacles did you have to overcome?
Yeah, so I originally started with the master leasing retail arbitrage type thing, where you rent the property out from an owner, and then you manage it for them. And what I realized that worked for a little bit. It allowed me to sort of like have a down payment and everything to build our first property. Originally, we were trying to purchase, but my very first property, we originally started looking for properties. We were looking to purchase, and at the time I was living in an apartment, and we were like, okay, we're looking at all these properties that were probably could do well as short-term rentals, but on the entry level side, like in our market, entry level is like 300 grand. There was nothing on the market that it was a house, it was a single family house. It would do good as a long-term rental, but what I saw was there was nothing unique about the property. So this was after like 3 or 4 months of actually looking, and I realized that I was like, I think I'm just gonna have to build my first one. So we started looking at different financing options. We found like a second home loan for our first project, where the bank lent like 90% loan to value. Um, our down payment was like 10%. It was also cheaper to build at the time, and it's still cheaper to build. It's just the prices have gone up just with everything else. But we sort of I found my GC. We put our plans together. We sort of took some ideas from different areas when it comes to like the design aspect of it. It was an A-frame. That was the first cabin we built. We decided to build. We closed on the property, and then it took about a year to build it. I messed up some things, just learning. And yeah, our first one started renting out a couple years ago, and I took all the cash flow from that and sort of dumped it into my next 4 projects. So I would say the hardest part was like just like with anything else, sort of getting that down payment. But there are lenders even today that will lend on, like we'll do 90% loan to value, where you only have to bring 10% to the table, which is pretty good. I've seen a couple lenders do VA loans, construction loans, but that it gets a little iffy there because you have to intend to occupy the property when you're doing a VA loan. That was the biggest piece, was just finding a lender that was open to that. It wasn't necessarily the management part. The management sort of takes care of itself. The booking takes care of itself if you develop unique properties. If it's not a normal home, if it's a property that's not a normal home, then it's going to do pretty well on the short-term rental sites right now. Yeah, that's my first one.
Nice. Are these loans? And I've seen a few lenders, coming up with a new product to serve this
Absolutely.
rental market.
Yeah.
Are the ones that you're getting, are they personal guarantee, show up on your own credit and stuff like that?
So they are personal guarantee recourse debt, but they don't. So the new ones that we're getting I don't know. We're building 4 right now. We're building 24 next year. The ones that we're building next year are all done under a specific company that specifically deals in short-term rentals. When I was at the Bigger Pockets conference last week, there were a couple lenders there that are open to short-term rental development now. The company that we're using right now is Host Financial. They do 85% loan to cost, which is not terrible. It is recourse debt, but they go off of debt service coverage ratio of what the property would rent out if it's built, which is phenomenal. Most lenders aren't doing that right now.
Yeah.
The only requirement they have is they have something called the post-closing liquidity requirement. So it's like a 10%. So if you're building $100,000 property, you have to show somewhere, whether it be like a stock account, a savings account, a CD. You have to show, if it's 100,000, you have to show like 10,000 in a savings account in the bank
After you close. Yeah.
After you close.
Yep.
Now
that's pretty common for commercial loans. That's pretty par.
So when we're doing 24 properties next year, they're all joint venture deals. I was instructed to only do accredited investors, which honestly a lot of the people who reached out to us were already accredited. Where we get the loan together with the investors. So like the joint venture deals and stuff. But it is recourse debt, and but it doesn't show up on your personal credit.
And that's a win. So obviously non-recourse is better,
right?
But having full recourse and on your personal credit is that is such for newer investors that don't realize what's happening until they hit a point where they're just like, like you're so far on credit worthy. Like you're like, I have to dig myself out of this hole, because you go to the bank and like your DTI is 80%. Like crazy. And stuff.
It's difficult too, because it's like a double-edged sword. The things that make real estate really good can screw you over. What I'm mainly talking about is the depreciation of the property. It's awesome to take that as a tax credit. But if you're a full, like me, if I'm a full-time real estate investor, developer, manager, if I'm full-time real estate and I'm trying to sort of decrease my tax burden so I could sort of go out and use that money to invest in more real estate, that screws me over when it comes to my DTI because I'm showing no income.
Yeah, exactly.
So the finding the right lender to do the debt service coverage ratio is awesome. It is harder, but not necessarily harder. It's a different form of lending if you're not used to it. So yeah, we started with our first one was a second home loan. One of the projects that we're doing right now with my buddy in California, he's doing his second home loan here. So I'm just a guarantor on that loan, and he's sort of doing a second home loan here where we're able to do that, which is another option. Gets a little bit like in the gray area when it comes to like lending stuff, but that's why we sort of stepped away from that model and sort of doing the debt service coverage ratio like lender. So
yeah, and the important part of that is be proactive and start building those relationships with those lenders before you have a deal under contract or before you have a GC or developer that you're talking to, because it's just a relationship you want to build. You don't want to waste a bunch of time with a lender that they don't have a product for you, or a lender that's going to be detrimental for you, 3-4 deals down the road, because every one of these is adding to your personal debt. So be upfront and about what your plan is, what your strategies, how the equities, coming in is being injected, what the business plan is, what your pro forma is, and then just go and sit down with all these different lenders. And just be like, do you have a product for this? Because what the worst thing to do is get to like the 11th hour and the lender's like, we can't finance this thing. Like,
oh, which 11th hour? It's happened on the 12th hour for us.
Yeah, exactly. Like we can't do this. We don't have a product for this. Of course it's going on your personal credit profile, and all this stuff. So
you need to show 12 months in reserves. Like,
yeah,
I didn't know that.
12 months reserves, $500,000, in an account post close. So like all these things, like get all these questions formulated and go meet with your lenders, or prospective lenders, before you start the process, and then narrow it down to 2 or 3 that know that they have a product for this business plan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it'll save you so much headache.
Yeah, I would have a backup to the backup. So 3 lenders. 3 lenders is good. Yeah.
Okay, so that was your first deal, and now you completely pivoted, which is amazing. A lot of people, before I get into what you pivoted to, and we've already mentioned it a couple of times, a lot of people, what they do is they'll sit in like kind of the arena that you're in for years, right? Or like that whole first deal, like go and get one property at a time and wait for the next one to come on the market, and they'll sit there for 10 years and realize 10 years down the road they're like, I only have 3 of these things. I'm nowhere near my original goal of whatever $20,000 a month income or something like that. And it's like debilitating. And I've seen it in my industry with the multifamily. People are getting stuck in like the small multifamily, like the duplexes and stuff like that. Like, if I work hard for the next 20 years, I can buy enough and 80 more duplexes, and then I'll be able to retire. I'm like, that sounds like horrible.
Right.
Why don't you just say focus and do 5 years and say really focused and try to find like 4 20 units,
2 deals,
and then you'll get there in 5 years over 10 years. But a lot of people they never make it past that plateau, that mental plateau, or that limitation. It seems like you flew right past it. When you did one deal and you're like, okay, we're scrapping that model, we're completely redoing this the right way. So let's get into that of what the thought process was to go to development, and how that's going.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily say flew by, because it was honestly it was my ego and sort of just like I wanted to control 100% of the asset. And so we built that first one, and then once I started showing it to people, showing it to friends, posting it, I had a lot of people started to reach out to me, and they wanted to invest. And so I sort of tried to figure out with a mentor what the structure can look like to bring on investors and stuff. I originally had a goal of doing 30 properties in the next like 5 years, and my mentor had sort of pushed me to sort of ask me like why can't that get done like next year? And my mentor was a short-term rental developer in the 80s and 90s. before like Airbnb even existed. And so he helped me put a model together that sort of helped me get to that. But on top of that, it was sort of just letting go control and like being fine with offering 50-50 with our investors. Where it's like like I take on their money, I develop them, manage them, everything's built in, and then it's a 50-50 split. I realized that me tying all my money up in my first couple projects that I couldn't build anymore. I could build 1-2 more, but not at the level that we're building at next year. So it's like there's a big difference between me building two, and then having 100% stake in that, or building 24 and having a 50% stake in that. And at the same time, like we have investors that like we're making them happy. We're building a brand. We're going way bigger. We're going from like the mom and pop doing like 2 or 4 to doing 24 and building an entire brand around it.
Matt, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, so that's kind of something that we're looking at doing now, is the short term leg of the business, and taking on investors for that, and then partnering. Yeah, I apologize for just kind of jumping here in the middle. I don't know what you guys have covered, but reading through your bio, I know that you're heavily involved here in Asheville, North Carolina, which isn't too far from me. How'd you land on that market?
I originally had another mentor that sort of was in the Smoky Mountains, like the Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area. That's where he had his rentals at. I think back in like 2010 is when he started. I didn't want to get into that market. And even back then in 2016, when I was talking to him, I just, the prices were going up, and the prices are still going up to this day. It was sort of a market that had we found a market that had similar rents, where the competition wasn't ridiculous yet. And I mean, the more people talk about it, the more competition is going to rise. But that's essentially what that was. It was, and I was engaged at the time. Asheville seemed like a city we could sort of like establish roots in. So that's sort of what we decided on, was Asheville. Currently, we're looking at other markets still. This is a good center point to the East Coast. So is the Smoky Mountains too. But a lot of people sort of drive into we're looking for a drive-in city was another thing, like an area where people are comfortable driving, because all the land we purchased is about 15 to 20 minutes away from downtown, where people are comfortable driving that without it being a hassle. Like they're not really looking to be like downtown where it's like walking distance to everything. So
yeah, that's very close.
Yeah.
How far are you from the Biltmore?
Yeah, I live 5 minutes away from the Biltmore, like that, the entrance. Wow. But our first cabin is about 20 minutes away from Biltmore and 15 minutes away from downtown. Asheville's weird. Asheville's like a big spread out city.
Yeah.
Like you can drive 25 minutes and still be in the same city, which is not where I grew up. Like where I grew up is not like that.
Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like you started investing there in your own backyard. You want to talk about some kind of like research tips? It sounds like that was a pretty heavily weighted decision or influence on why you chose that market. Just looking at expanding, what kind of things are you looking at when you're choosing a short-term rental market versus any other type of real estate?
Yeah, so there are a couple different ways to do it. Honestly, the most interesting way I found was through a YouTube channel, and the host was talking about doing, and we accidentally did this without even realizing, is he invests in areas where you're close to a national park or a national forest entrance. And the reason being is there are millions of people. Like, I mean, Smoky Mountains alone brings in like 12 to 15 million people a year. There's already a built-in audience there, quote unquote. There people are already coming there, and it's like most of these people are already driving to this area. Investing in mountains, I have found, is easier than investing in the beach, because you can find land with mountain views easier than like being directly on the beach. There's only one beach. There's multiple mountain ranges, or like there's multiple hills and everything. So I'd
say it's less seasonal too. Right.
Way less season. Huge.
People like to sit in a hot tub in the snow, and then when the weather
right. And honestly, like our first cabin looks prettier in the winter. You get like almost a 200-degree mountain view in the winter when everything goes, all the leaves go away.
Yeah.
So we invest in mountains, like mountain views. Access is huge. That's actually the number one thing to look for. Is think about your guests. Think about what they're going to be driving through. Like, I don't want my guests to be going like 15 minutes down a gravel road or up a gravel road to be able to get to my property. It's like, think about like some of my guests are like driving in at night, and this is the first time they're visiting the area, and it's like pitch black outside in the mountains. So you got to be thinking about like you don't want your guests to be pissed like right when they get to the property, like, oh, that was terrible, like I got to go through that.
Scared to get there.
Right, yeah, and then
100-foot
like
drop off the
it's
side.
like they're not gonna care about the popcorn that you laid out for them, or like the bottle of wine you laid out. Like they're gonna be pissed. So access is huge. Investing in areas that already have, like, again, the national park type of thing, the forest, like we have the Blue Ridge Mountains here, the national forest. And then another strategy that I recently learned, which I haven't implemented yet, but it's super, when I was at the Bigger Pockets conference, they had a short-term rental panel, and one of the people, a part of that panel, was talking about she invests in areas that have like a very large hospital around them, where she broke it out as in vacation rentals and short-term rentals are completely different, which is an interesting thing to learn, which is she does 30-day rentals, anywhere between 30 to 45 days. And that's a gray area where almost every single area in the country will allow that, because most of the areas, most of the zoning don't allow for 30 days and under. So that was another interesting strategy to learn. That's a completely different model than what we're doing, but that's another way to do it. If you're in an area that you're like, okay, I'm not really in an area where I'm really known for anything, like the city's not known for anything, you could do a short-term rental around like a hospital or something. So
yeah, you capture the traveling nurses.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Traveling nurses or people that are getting like some kind of long-term treatment or something like that.
Yeah. I used to work in a hospital, and I've had multiple nurses tell me like traveling nurses will pay, whatever for a cool place to live while they're in town.
Yeah, why not?
And that's interesting you mentioned that, because I don't know if Vince told you, I'm living in Fayetteville right now, which is like, Army base here, but no one's really vacationing. And I've got some buddies that do short-term rentals here, and apparently it's very hot because it's like almost the exact midway point from New York City and Miami. So
there you go.
Tons of people stopping by. Real quick, my North Carolina geography is a little bit rough. You're at the foot end of the Blue Ridge Mountains, and then is the Uwharrie or Croatan National Forest over there.
So you have Pisgah National Forest, and then you just have we're part of the entire like Blue Ridge Mountains, like the mountain range.
I think I've driven through Asheville once. My cabin's in Ellijay, so just a little bit south of you.
How far?
Maybe an hour and a half. I have to look. I'm like, see you cross over just south of Blue Ridge.
Okay, yeah, we're an hour and a half, and the other way, like towards like Pigeon Forge, like Gatlinburg area, the Smokies and stuff. So
yeah. So you're building these cabins yourself, which is pretty, non-standard for people building these cabins. Do you keep them for a set amount of time? Do you have a plan to exit them? Are they going to cash flow forever? Are you going to update them?
So when we pitch our investors, we do a standard just 10-year long-term hold. We have had some investors try to talk us into like 2-3 year holds, but I mean, I'm not a fan of that. I mean, it takes like, I would say 2 to 5 months, 2 to 6 months to find the land and close on it, and then develop for another year. It's like, I'm not going to hold them for 3 years if it takes just that long to develop them. But yeah, I'm the developer. I have a GC that works for me, and then we sub everything out. But we sort of focus on these 6-unit clusters where we purchase anywhere between 6 to 10 acres. We subdivide it into 3 plots, and then we put a primary and a detached accessory dwelling unit on each one of those plots. So we do that for a lot of different reasons. Zoning is one reason. It's just easier to zone it that way. Our lender won't like lend on 6 units on the same parcel. So they will lend on a primary and accessory like unit. So it's 3 separate loans, but the loan costs are all the same because it's a percentage loan cost. So that's what we do mainly. And then we like to take on only 1 investor per community. So right now, the 24 that we're doing next year, we're doing 4 vacation rental communities. So 6 cabins. We did take on like 3 investors in one project where they established they incorporated an LLC, where all 3 of them are like, or sorry, there's 4 investors. Each investor owns 25%, and they've all put in the same amount of money into that deal. So we can do it that way. But yeah, we develop them, and then we self-manage. We manage them in-house, and then we have like a break-even management fee of like, I think currently it's 3%. It's just to cover our software costs, just to cover say like when we use a messaging system to handle all our messages, but like all the messages that come through that the system can't handle, we have someone that takes care of that too, or we're going to have someone who takes care of that. Yeah, and yeah, 10-year holds. That's the biggest thing, and it's a 50-50 split after everything. So
At 10 years, will you sell them off as like a package deal, or you sell them off individually?
it depends where the market is at, man. The beautiful thing about doing it that way, or doing the like subdividing the acreage, is the exit is already built in. If you're trying to do single family, like if you're just trying to sell them off to someone who wants to live in them, the exit's already there. It would make more sense to find a cluster, and it would actually make more sense to sell them off to like a vacation rental operator. So there's 3 or 4 exits already there. It's just we don't know what the market's going to look like in 10 years. We don't know who. There are probably going to be players, equity funds that are purchasing these things 10 years down the road that don't even exist yet. So that's probably a strategy we'd probably lean towards, is sort of selling them off to like an equity fund, because we'd make more money that way, because we'd be selling the property and the cash flow.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So outside of your first one, I guess, what does a typical loan product that you're using look like? Like, how are you funding carrying costs until this thing looks like about
so
12 to 18 months before your cash flowing?
So carrying costs are part of what we raise from the partners. So carrying costs, furnishing costs are another one. Hot tubs don't count because they're fixtures. Closing costs, furnishing costs, holding costs, and land purchase is tied into the deal. So we don't really play with that. Now you can purchase the land with the investor money and then use that as the collateral to qualify for the loan. That's another strategy to do. We're sort of stepping away from that just because we get better terms if we package everything together. But yeah, we just the loan product we use is I already talked about, was Host Financial. And then we have a couple lenders, another lenders that we just have as backup, but they do like debt service coverage ratio for the loan products, where they'll go on Air DNA and look at what the properties would rent out at and do like projections based off of that. It's a pretty easy number to reach. I mean, I think their number is like 1.2 or 1.5, but these properties are operating in like 3. So it's like, it's not even that's such an easy requirement to reach right now.
Yeah, especially on short-term rentals.
And the lender's based out of California, and cost to build is like a fourth, a fifth of what. So like we're asking for $2 million for 6 projects. To them, that's one single family house where they're based out of. So it's like, it's not really current. I hope it'll probably go up, but right now we're just sort of riding the wave the next couple of years on that, like with costs and everything.
Yeah. And so when you're building these communities, I don't know if you discussed it yet, but what size property are you targeting, and what number of guests?
Yeah,
like
primary,
the more you can charge.
Right. So heads and beds. So primary unit anywhere between 12 to 1,500 square foot, and then the smaller unit anywhere between 4 to 800 square foot. So the accessory dwelling unit. Sorry, the primary can sleep 6 usually. We do have a bigger one that's 2,100 square foot that can sleep 8, and then the smaller one anywhere between 2 to 4. We do have the first cabin we built is only 800 square foot, and it can comfortably sleep 6. The accessory dwelling units can do 4, and then the primaries can do 6. And that's sort of just the generic number, because like some of them can sleep 8, some of them. We don't do any with 2. I feel like you can add a queen sleeper sofa and then immediately be able to do 4. So we design our properties for it to be able to have a big enough couch for us to be able to fit queen sleeper sofa.
Definitely.
But like our first the first project I pitched 3 months ago, that one can sleep. So all 6 together can sleep 34 people. So that's a boutique hotel there at that point. Like, I mean, 6 units. Doing the clusters, I mean, it's just easier to manage, especially if you're only taking on 1 or 2 investors at a time. 6, 6, 6. The beautiful thing, which I haven't talked about yet either, is we have 24 unique. Each cabin community is different, so we have like a theme for each community. They're all permanent foundation stick built homes. They're not tiny houses on wheels or anything like that. We have 24 unique floor plans right now. Probably going to be 30 by the end of this year. We can take those 30 and go into different markets. We can go into Nashville market. We can go into another national forest, national park market, and sort of copy and paste these floor plans into these markets if we want to venture outside of our market as well.
And what's a typical cost to furnish one of those? What do you underwrite for?
I'll have to look that up. It's every single one is different. We
Yeah.
sort of have like a template of what I put together a template of. So I tracked every expense for our first cabin down to like the penny for what everything costs to furnish. And based off of that first cabin, I have like a large living room and a small living room cost. So it's like, oh, this one's gonna have a small living room, and same
Yeah.
thing with like bedrooms. Is it a large bedroom? Is it a small bedroom? Is it a large kitchen? Is it a small kitchen? And based off that, so I think it was like for the first six we did, it was like a cost of like 95 grand to furnish all six of them. That's not that bad for six properties. Especially if you're going to be selling off these properties, like you're going to be including the furnishing costs in there. So
Yeah. And you're furnishing these like high end, like what are you doing to differentiate your property when someone goes on, any of the rental sites?
yeah,
What's stopping me at your listing saying
absolutely.
this
Yeah.
is the
So
one I gotta have?
outside of access, that's the most important thing. Is the reason we develop unique properties. So it's outside of the furnishings. It's the property structure is unique. It's an A-frame. It's a log cabin. It's a modern contemporary type of looking. There aren't too many of those modern looking houses, like barn house. So it looks like a barn house on the outside, but it's modern on the inside. Small cottages, like really nice, like small cottages. So what stops a guest at our properties is how unique they are. That's number one. So like the floor plan's very open. That sort of draws the guests in. And then just amenities. We don't go like crazy high end on anything. It's mainly like Ashley furniture type stuff. And it's just designing it and creating a good like color scheme where everything sort of matches. It's not just a hodgepodge of stuff. So like we follow like a three color concept where it's like our first cabin, the three colors were black, gray, and white, and we were able to really all the appliances were black, all of the flooring was gray, and then the cabinets were white. So it's like that sticking to the three color thing has helped us a lot. Just designing, like we literally can look at something on Amazon and just be like, oh, okay, that toaster is silver. It's not going to work. It has to be black. And those little things, man, if like you have like 100 pieces of furniture, those little things add up to like the aesthetic of the property is sticking to like some sort of color scheme.
Oh yeah, good pictures go a long way. I mean,
Oh,
you got the best
massive.
camera, but if took all
Yeah.
your photos on your cell phone, people are just gonna
Yeah. Drone
assume that
photos.
carries
Drone
through.
photos cost like $100. If you want to go purchase your own drone, you can purchase a nice one for like $400. It'll pay for itself in a couple properties. Drone photos are huge too. I wish Airbnb would allow videos because VRBO allows videos, like for you to do like almost like an intro video to your property. That's huge, like a walkthrough.
Yeah. Well, I guess one quick question. I think Vince is going to talk through some stuff, but do you also do your own direct booking websites where you could put like a video on?
Yeah, so we're building that out right now, and the way we're building that out is there's a company called Stay5 that I've talked about a lot. It's a little disc looking thing that plugs into the back of your router, and it does a landing page for the internet. So the guest has to put their email address in to be able to access your internet. It protects you because you sort of can have like a mini terms thing, like, hey, like you can't do anything crazy on my internet. Then that email address is then taken, put in through MailChimp, and then we can directly market to the guest. So we're essentially taking them off Airbnb, we're taking them off the online travel agencies, and we're putting them onto our own platform. So that's a new, and the Stay5, the little box costs like $100, and it's like $6 a month after that. It's nothing crazy. Um, and it's not like you're getting one email per guest. If six people are staying in your cabin, you're probably going to get six emails. It also works. This is sort of a feature, a part of the that's a part of that isn't really on the marketing side. But if you see, you can go directly into the property and see how many people are signed into the Wi-Fi. So like if you have, give or take, like if you have like laptops and cell phones, that'll count as two devices. But you have like 15 devices logged on, you're like, I think a party's happening in my place. Like
Yeah.
so like that's cool too. But or your original question, yeah, we started building that out, and that's the one tool that's helped us really with that is you can't really you can request the guest's email through Airbnb, but that's a way cleaner way to do it. And we're going to be charged like service fee for Airbnb getting crazier and crazier. So it's like we have our service fees way less or going to be way less. So it's like it's almost like they're losing money if they don't book with us. It's like we'll literally offer you the same rate, except our service fee is lower. But that way you control the guest. You control the guests. You don't have to deal with Airbnb. I think this year they blocked, like they went into all of our calendars in like the party areas, which we're not considered a party area, but they blocked out our calendars for New Year's. We can't have any guests for New Year's. And right, that happened a couple months ago, 4 months ago. Once that happened, I was like, I need to really focus on. I don't like that a company can completely control my property like that. So that's why we decided to build the back end, the direct bookings. That's where it's going, man. It's almost like going full circle. It's short-term rentals have been around forever, and the online travel agencies have come. Airbnb is still a big part of our business, so I'm not going to trash talk them. But a lot of people are the operators that are doing these bigger projects that aren't doing like one or two. They're stepping away from the online travel agencies and trying to control the guests themselves, where it's like they have control of their guest that comes through.
Yeah, and I always get, Instagram or Facebook ads for XYZ property that's, I'm within their advertising bubble. So that's definitely nice to capture them. Man, I didn't realize that about blocking your calendar off. We've got our New Year's booked already too. And I'm like,
yeah.
If I didn't have that booking, it almost covers my entire debt service for the month.
Right, the entire month, right? Yeah, no, and again, that's a tiny thing that probably only happens like once a year, so it's only like 3 days. But
yeah,
if I'm gonna have, we're looking to have 30 properties by the end of next year. Like that would be how many? Like 30 times 3 days that got booked out. Like that'd be a crap ton of money that's just lost because we just couldn't control it for no reason. So just because I know where it came from. It came from Airbnb. They had a blog post written about them, about parties and stuff, and that sort of irked a lot of people.
Yeah,
but you can party in a hotel room, which makes no sense.
Yeah, where your neighbors are just on the other side of the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Something else.
All right. Well, let's start winding down this show here. I got maybe just one question more, and then we'll jump into the fire round.
Yeah.
And then we'll hop out of here and get back to our beautiful Saturdays. It's cold and raining in Michigan, but I'm sure it's nice in North Carolina.
Nope. Same.
Same, yeah. All right. Well, so before we get started, what was the biggest mistake you've made so far in your journey in real estate? I think you said you bought your first one in was it 2015 or something like that?
Yeah, 2017.
2017. Yep. So since 2017, what's been the biggest mistake you've learned? What's our biggest mistake you've made, and the lesson you learned from that that you can pass on to our listeners?
Biggest mistake I made, man, was, and this is going to sound like a tiny problem, but it almost screwed up the entire deal, and the property was already built. We didn't confirm utilities. When you're building out in the suburbs or like in the rural areas, like neighbors can have access to electricity that they won't give you an easement for a ridiculous number. So like we couldn't draw an electricity, we couldn't get an electricity line up to our property because we needed like 100-foot easement that was literally on the side of the road. It wasn't even going to go through any neighbors, anything. But the neighbor was very difficult about it and requested it was at the time it was like $15,000 for that $100 or that 100-foot easement. We found out a way to go around them through other neighbors. But we built our first property on a generator because we didn't have any access to electricity. So confirming your electricity, making sure that you're not digging a ridiculous, if you're building rural, you're not digging a ridiculous well, 1,500 foot, which would cost you like 20 or 30 grand. So just confirming utilities, making sure that you can get some sort of internet to the property. Internet's huge, even if you're doing a glamping thing, people are still looking for internet. So yeah, just confirming your utilities was a big thing for me. And that sounds like a tiny problem, but I mean, that literally would keep me up for 8 months. The project was fully built. And then we put electricity in it, which is hilarious. But yeah, confirming utilities. And a lot of my mistakes I started to talk about on my YouTube channel that we recently started. It's just we put together a whole bunch of videos just teaching people all our mistakes and stuff.
What's the name of that channel?
So the name of the channel is Alex Builds, and it's essentially just the logo is like a little blue treehouse, essentially.
Alex Builds at YouTube, and we'll get into the if you have a website and whatnot in a minute here. But we're going to transition over to the fire round, just like any other fire round. Same questions that we ask everybody, and see how you what first things you come up with. So, first question: what's the best book you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad?
It's a phenomenal question because it's always changing. I would say The One Thing by Jay Papasan and Gary Keller. I just met Jay Papasan at the Bigger Pockets conference, which was crazy. But yeah, the One Thing, it's short, simple, like 150 pages, and it's just packed full of stuff, time blocking, calendar stuff. That's really helped me. I use that every single day. Miracle Morning's another one by Hal Elrod. I know you said only one, but Miracle Morning, those two books.
What's great about The One Thing is it comes pre-highlighted and underlined.
There you go.
It really streamlines.
Phenomenal picture book.
Yeah, it really streamlines the learning process of the concept there. I thought I bought it from Amazon when it first came out, the hardcover, and I was like, did I get gypped and get a used book? And then I realized, I'm like, oh, that's some good marketing. I'm like,
yeah.
Anyway, okay. So what is your superpower?
I'm really good at connecting dots, man. Like I'm really good at putting deals together. We don't really have a business model when it comes to like an exact investing criteria, just because every single deal is different. There is like some things that we take from some deals, but I'm really good at just structuring deals together. That's why we do the joint venture thing compared to the syndication thing right now. Just because every single investor is different and we can sort of tailor our deals to what the investor's needs are, like just where they are in their investing life.
And I was going to make a comment on that too. I know we're in fire round, but another way to tailor it is if you have an investor that's really itching to have their money back in 3 years, you can always switch to a return of capital model that we do in syndication, where it's like, okay, if you want to be 3 years illiquid, we'll do a 3-year deal 50-50. We'll do a refinance, do a complete return of capital on your half, and then the split changes to maybe like a 90-10 or something like that. So we do that.
We had one investor we had one investor at the Bigger Pockets conference ask for all the depreciation because they're like a high income earner, and that was almost like they essentially wanted all the depreciation, and that's all they cared about, was not even the cash flow, it was just to break even and just be able to get their income to go down, like their taxable income, which is another interesting strategy. Yeah,
it's very interesting. You just got to always consult a CPA or have them, because it's that gets very gray very, very fast.
Absolutely. 100%.
Especially if you have multiple investors and you can't show favoritism or whatever the legal term is for favoritism. So we've done similar questions like that, or field of questions from investors. But I like the return of capital model. It turns a long-term illiquid event to a fairly short-term without having to go through a capital event like a sale or something like that.
That's good.
It's also really convenient when you return their capital right around the time you have another deal.
Yeah,
that you need funding.
Yeah, absolutely. They're
like, hey, I just wrote you a check for $200,000. What's your plans?
Yeah, what are you gonna do with it?
Yeah, we got this 100 unit over here. It's looking great. All right. What is the biggest lesson you've learned so far over your entire career?
That usually the deals that you don't like, that you originally want to do and that you're so focused on that you lose, or end up being the deals that could have screwed you over. So that's happened. We've purchased 3 plots of land so far, and we're about to purchase another 3. But the one that we've always been under contract for a property that we've never pulled the trigger on, and we've always found a property shortly after that we ended up closing on. And for some reason, like looking back at it, all 3 of those properties that were originally under contract on would have been terrible deals. So we've just not necessarily gotten lucky. It's usually don't get too emotionally attached to when you're under contract. It would be the biggest thing on the real estate side.
Yeah, for us, and that's the kind of the, if you do that kind of like self-awareness, like what am I, like a SWOT analysis on yourself, like what are your strengths and weaknesses? If you know that you're somebody that gets like that tunnel vision and gets like or emotionally attached, that's where your team comes in, because you need a teammate that's the opposite, that can bring you back to reality or bring that that logic or that rationale or that just critical thinking of just questioning.
Mentors are really good for that.
Yeah, and just be like, hey, let's jump on a deal, or let's just jump on this underwriting or this business plan of this deal, and just walk through it and just have them just kind of Swiss cheese your business plan. And you're like, oh, I missed all of that stuff because I was so close to the ground that I didn't look up and see the forest that this isn't this isn't the best deal or in the best location or whatever.
Right.
And that if you are one of those people, that's fine. Find a partner that has the opposite traits and you'll save yourself a ton of headache.
I think that's super important on at least your first deal too, for people wanting to get started, is like you could be in such a rush to get that first deal.
Yeah, and you've looked at like 50 properties and you're like,
under you contract. Overlook things like, well, I really want to get this one done.
Don't Yeah,
That'll
a
be
shortened way
okay.
of saying that, like, don't force your vision on for us, don't force the vision on the land is that lesson there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the get there itis is what.
Yeah, right.
All right, for the busy working professional who's working towards financial freedom, what advice or tips do you have?
Just educate yourself. Continue to educate yourself. If so, like if you're in real estate, look at different types of real estate. Don't like for me, I'm very I try to read about self storage, multifamily, single family flipping, rehab. I try to understand different parts of real estate because they're all connected at the end of the day. Like cap rates are all the same, ROIs are all the same, like the meaning there is all the same. So for someone who's just starting, I would definitely focus on like if you have a long commute, to just educate yourself, listen to the right podcasts like this, listen to the right audiobooks. Almost all of Bigger Pockets books are on Audible. So yeah, just educate yourself initially. If you're just starting off and sort of try to transition and just work on some sort of deal, even if you get back from work, or if you're early in the morning during your lunch break, just spending an hour or two a day on your own deals can skyrocket you to success in a couple of years.
Especially listen to podcasts.
Yeah,
Like
especially podcasts.
All right. So any last words for our listeners? How can people connect with you? And we'll close it out.
Yeah, no. So the way people could connect with me, I'm pretty involved in the YouTube channel, like comment section and stuff. My email address to that YouTube channel is alexbuildschannel@gmail.com. So alexjarbochannel@gmail.com. They can go to alexbuildschannels.com, where we show all of our deals. There isn't really an investing portal there. But if there's anyone listening that's looking to do any short-term rental stuff or anything, or if they have any questions about their own deals, just feel free to reach out either through the YouTube channel or through my email address.
Yep. So the correct answer would have been, there's no investor portal there yet.
Yet. Right. We're working on it.
Working.
Yeah. We're working on putting on an evergreen fund together for like deals that are already like if we come across a lot of deals from agents that contact me, and I'm just like, hey, I'm just focused on the development side, but some of them are really good deals that we've just passed on because we haven't had either the investors or just that wasn't our strategy currently. So we are going to be putting a fund together soon.
All right. Matt, any last words?
I don't. I just, I encourage everyone, just like you said, to look at all the different options of real estate. I mean, I think no matter which one you're doing, it's real estate as a blanket term is the best asset class, and find what works for you, what works for your goals, and then, do all the things that you just said to get after something, even if it's just a little bit here and there.
Yeah. Our first property was 800 square foot, and now we're building thousands and thousands of square foot. So, I mean, it can happen very quickly.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show and spend your Saturday afternoon with us. And for our listeners, stay tuned for the next one.
Man, Vince, awesome show. It was good to talk with Alex today. I get excited about short-term rentals as well as, kind of another vehicle to increase your cash flow. And then, I would say divert it to multifamily. But so many strategies when real estate. So talked about not getting emotionally attached to a deal, letting the numbers kind of do the work for you. And then some of the benefits of developing versus buying. You might take a little bit longer to see the benefits from that. But for Alex's strategy, he's found that developing far outweighs, just going in and buying something that doesn't really stand out in the market.
Yeah, good points. And some of the things I took away, my golden nuggets was, look for top family vacation spots that are going to get a whole lot of travel. We mentioned like do these things next to national parks, something that's going to have a tons of just organic traffic to that area because it already is a national destination. Other things I took about is the hospital strategy, and that's big where I'm at. I know we have a big, huge regional hospital. I think that one is doing the short-term rental, but not like the Airbnb model or a vacation rental, but actually like a short-term rental for like traveling professionals, nurses, and whatever. I know that's a big thing in just my small market here in Michigan. I know those are popular. So those are kind of the two golden nuggets I took away. So if you want to do the outro here.
Yeah. So if you're interested in investing with us, You can go to tricityequity.com to learn more. And then if you want to connect with other like-minded investors, please join our Facebook group. It's Honolulu Multifamily and More. We do meetups there. We've got some ebooks, and then if you've got questions, there's over 1,000 people willing to answer your questions and connect with you and talk about real estate. If you found value in this podcast, please subscribe, give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts, we're there. And then if you know anyone who might resonate with today's podcast, please share the episode with them. That way we can just build the audience and then help as many people as possible.
Yep. Thank you for that. And also, because we're starting this big conference next year, we're super excited to share with you our upcoming conference, the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference, codenamed the Blueprint. Come join top industry leaders for motivation, training, and of course, lots of networking. Beautiful Ko'olina, Hawaii. Look it up. We're going to be right there at the Four Seasons, A-class all around. It's going to be July 21st through 24th, 2022. So you got to mark your calendar, start planning ahead now, getting your leave in, getting it on the books. We do have early bird specials right now. So you're definitely going to want to check out the Millionaire Mindset, blueprint.com to register and get in this event before it sells out very quickly. So hope to see you there. It's going to be a phenomenal event at Ko'olina on the island of Oahu. All right. Thanks for this episode, and see you next time.